Evening reading of W.B. Yeats. Picked this up at a used bookstore that just recently went out of business to my enormous sorrow. And I'm glad I got this, though. Are picking up where we left off from last time. This one is called Down by the Sally Gardens by W.B. Yeats. Down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow-white feet. She bid me take love easy, as the leaves grow on the tree. But I, being young and foolish, with her would not agree. In a field by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she laid her snow-white hand. She bid me take life easy, as the grass grows on the weirs, but I was young and foolish, and now am full of tears. It was down by the Sally Gardens. This one is called Cuchulainn. I'm going to call it Cuchulainn. Cuchulainn's Fight with the Sea. A man came slowly from the setting sun to Emer, rattling raiment in her dun, and said, I am that swineherd whom you bid go watch the road between the wood and tide. But now I have no need to watch it more. Then Emer cast the web upon the floor, and raising arms all rattled with the dye, parted her lips with a loud, sudden cry. That swineherd stared upon her face and said, No man alive, no man among the dead has won the gold his cars of battle bring. But if your master comes home triumphing, why you must blench and shake from foot to crown. Why must you blench and shake from foot to crown? Thereon he shook the more and cast him down upon the web-heaped floor, and cried his word, With him is one sweet-throated like a bird. You dare me to my face, and thereupon she smote with rattled fist, and where her son herded the cattle, came with stumbling feet and cried with angry voice, It is not meet to idle life away, a common herd. I have long waited, mother, for that word, but wherefore now? There is a man to die, you have the heaviest arm under the sky. Whether under its daylight or its stars, my father stands amid his battle cars. But you have grown to be the taller man, yet somewhere under starlight or the moon, my father stands. Aged, worn out with wars on foot, on horseback, or in battle cars. I only ask what way my journey lies, for he who made you bitter made you wise. The Red Branch camp in a great company between the wood's rim and the horses of the sea. Go there and light a campfire at wood's rim, but tell your name and lineage to him whose blade compels, and wait till they have found some feasting man that the same oath has bound. Among those feasting men, Cuchulainn dwelt, and his young sweetheart, close behind him knelt, stared on the mournful wonder of his eyes, even as spring upon the ancient skies, and pondered on the glory of his days. And all around the harp string told his praise, and Conchubar, the Red Branch, king of kings, with his own fingers touched the brazen rings. At last Cuchulainn spake, Some man has made his evening fire amid the leafy shade. I have often heard him swinging to and fro. I have often heard the sweet sound of his bow. Seek out what man he is. He bade me let all he know gives his name at the sword point, and waits till we have found some feasting man that the same oath has bound. Walking David, what's up, brother? We need to catch up. I've got your number. You've got my number. By the way, I just did a narration for the Oklahoma National Guard Museum in Oklahoma City. Aren't you around there? And I'm coming out there for the grand opening in a few months maybe. But we got to catch up. We got to catch up on the phone, if nothing else, but in person would be even better. One went and came at the sword point, and waits till we have found some feasting man that the same oath has found. Okay, yeah. So Oklahoma City, my sister and brother-in-law are in Guthrie, and yeah, I'll holler at you. A from Afghanistan Taliban. Wrong, wrong. This is not what that's about. At the sword point, and waits till we have found some feasting man at the same oath has bound. Cuchulain cried, I am the only man of all this host so bound from childhood. And if anybody knows how to pronounce Cuchulain, feel free to correct me. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. After short fighting in the leafy shade, he spake to the young man, Is there no maid who loves you, no white arms to wrap you round? Or do you long for the dim, sleepy ground that you have come and dared me to my face? The dooms of men are in God's hidden place. Your head awhile seemed like a woman's head that I loved once. Again the fighting sped, and now the war rage in Cuchulain woke. And through that new blade's guard the old blade broke and pierced him. Speak before your breath is done. Cuchulain, I, mighty Cuchulain's son. You look like Tony Soprano's son. Yeah, well, maybe I am. While day its burden on to evening bore, with head bowed on his knees, Cuchulain stayed. Then Conchobar sent that sweet-throated maid, and she, to win him, his gray hair caressed. In vain her arms, in vain her soft white breast. Then Conchobar, the subtlest of all men, ranking his druids round him 10 by 10, spake thus, Cuchulain will dwell there and brood for 3 days more in dreadful quietude, and then arise and raving slay us all. Chaunt in his ear delusions magical, that he may fight the horses of the sea. The druids took them to their mystery and chaunted for 3 days. Cuchulain stirred, stared on the horses of the sea, and heard the cars of battle, and his own name cried, and fought with the invulnerable tide. That was Cuchulain's fight with the sea. I'm marking these off as I read them, because I never read, or rarely read straight through. Well, now that was, Mrs. Doubtfire was all fun and games back in the day, but there are a lot more out and about these days, because that's pretty widespread. The Rose of the Wild. Who dreamed that beauty passes like a dream? For these red lips, with all their mournful pride, mournful that no new wonder may betide, Troy passed away in one high funeral gleam. And Usna's children died. We in the laboring world are passing by, amid men's souls that waver and give place, like the pale waters in their wintry race, under the passing stars. Foam of the sky lives on this lonely face. Bow down, archangels, in your dim abode. Before you were, or any hearts to beat, weary and kind, one lingered by his seat. He made the world to be a grassy road before her wandering feet. Essentia, I hope everything comes out okay, man. To Ireland in the coming times. Know that I would accounted be true brother of a company that sang to sweeten Ireland's wrong, ballad and story, ran and song, nor be I any less of them, because the red rose bordered him of her, whose history began before God made the angelic clan, trails all about the written page. When time began to rant and rage, the measure of her flying feet made Ireland's heart begin to beat. And time bade all his candles flare to light a measure here and there. And may the thoughts of Ireland brood upon a measured quietude. Nor may I less be counted one with Davis, Mangan, Ferguson, because to him who ponders well, my rhymes more than their rhyming tell of things discovered in the deep, where only bodies laid asleep. For the elemental creatures go about my table to and fro, that hurry from unmeasured mind to rant and rage in flood and wind. Yet he who treads in measured ways may surely barter gaze for gaze. Man ever journeys on with them after the red rose bordered him. Ah, fairies dancing under the moon, a druid land, a druid tune. While still I may, I write for you the love I lived, the dream I knew. From our birthday until we die is but the twinkling of an eye. And we are singing in our love what measurer time has lit above, and all benighted things that go about my table to and fro are passing on to where may be in truth's consuming ecstasy, no place for love and dream at all, for God goes by with white footfall. I cast my heart into my rhymes, that you in the dim coming times may know how my heart went with them after the red rose bordered him. This one's called The Hosting of the Side. The host is riding from Knocknaera and over the grave of Cluthnabear. Keolti tossing his burning hair, in Niam calling away, come away. Empty your heart of its mortal dream. The winds awaken, the leaves whirl round. Our cheeks are pale, our hair is unbound. Our breasts are heaving, our eyes are agleam, our arms are waving, our lips are apart. And if any gaze on our rushing band, we come between him and the deed of his hand. We come between him and the hope of his heart. The host is rushing betwixt night and day, and where there is hope where is there hope or deed as fair? Keolti, I don't know how to say that. If you know this one, the hosting of the city, the site, whatever, let me know. Tossing his burning hair, and Niam calling away, come away. The moods. Time drops in decay like a candle burnt out, and the mountains and woods have their day. What one in the rout of the fireborn moods has fallen away. The unappeasable host. The Danaan children laugh in cradles of wrought gold, and clap their hands together and half close their eyes, for they will ride the north when the gare eagle flies, with heavy whitening wings and a heart fallen cold. I kiss my wailing child and press it to my breast, and hear the narrow graves calling my child and me, desolate winds that cry over the wandering sea, desolate winds that hover in the flaming west, desolate winds that beat the doors of heaven and beat the doors of hell and blow there many a whimpering ghost. O heart the winds have shaken, the unappeasable host is comelier than candles at Mother Mary's feet. This is an interesting line. From our birthday until we die is but the twinkling of an eye. That's a good line. Very, very interesting. And time bade all his candles flare to light a measure here and there. I like that. Into the twilight. Outworn heart, in the time outworn, come clear of the nets of wrong and right. Laugh, heart, again in the gray twilight. Sigh, heart, again in the dew of the morn. Your mother ire is always young, dew ever shining in twilight gray, though hope fall from you and love decay, burning in fires of a slanderous tongue. Come, heart, where hill is heaped upon hill, for there the mystical brotherhood of sun and moon and hollow and wood and river and stream work out their will, and God stands winding his lonely horn, and time and the world are ever in flight, and love is less kind than the gray twilight, and hope is less dear than the dew of the morn. The Song of Wandering Angus. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she is gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, and silver apples of the moon, and golden apples of the sun. I'm going to read a short story, I think. So I did some W.B. Yeats. There's a short story I want to read. And it's by a guy named Ambrose Bierce. And he was a Civil War veteran. Civil War veteran. This is called Killed at Resaca. The best soldier of our staff was Lieutenant Herman Braille, one of the 2 aides de camp. I don't remember where the general picked him up. From some Ohio regiment, I think. None of us had previously known him, and it would have been strange if we had, for no 2 of us came from the same state, nor even from adjoining states. The general seemed to think that a position on his staff was a distraction that should be so judiciously conferred as to not beget any sectional jealousies and imperil the integrity of that part of the country which was still an integer. He would not even choose officers from his own command, but by some jugglery at department headquarters obtained them from other brigades. Under such circumstances, a man's services had to be very distinguished indeed to be heard of by his family and the friends of his youth, and the speaking trump of fame was a trifle hoarse from loquacity anyhow. Lieutenant Braille was more than 6 feet in height and of splendid proportions, with the light hair and gray-blue eyes which men are gifted usually find associated with a high order of courage. As he was commonly in full uniform, especially in action, when most officers are content to be less flamboyantly attired, he was very striking and a conspicuous figure. As to the rest, He had a gentleman's manners, a scholar's head, and a lion's heart. He was about the age of 30. We all soon came to like Braille as much as we admired him, and it was with sincere concern that in the engagement at Stones River, our first action after he joined us, we observed that he had one objectionable and unsoldierly quality. He was vain of his courage. During all the vicissitudes and mutations of that hideous encounter, whether our troops were fighting in the open cotton fields, in the cedar thickets, or behind the railway embankment, he did not once take cover. You look exactly like one of the guys in the movies who are really wise and gay, where the main character goes to for getting insight on how the villain thinks. Okay, then. During all the vicissitudes and mutations of the hideous encounter, whether our troops were fighting in the open cotton fields, in the cedar thickets, or behind the railway embankment, he did not once take cover except when sternly commanded to do so by the officer, who usually had other things to think of than the lives of his staff officers, or those of his men for that matter. In every engagement while Braille was with us, it was the same way. He would sit his horse like an equestrian statue in a storm of bullets and grape in the most exposed places, whenever, in fact, duty requiring him to go permitted him to remain. Nandu Kumar, what's going on? This is, the book's called The Collected Writings of Ambrose Bierce, so it has a lot of short stories. It has the Devil's Dictionary, which he's well known for. But he was an American Civil War veteran and writer, and he ended up, in his 70s, he went down to Mexico to cover Pancho Villa and ended up disappearing. Nobody ever knows what happened to him. He's a pretty fascinating guy. But his stories are very interesting, and he was a combat veteran of about 22 engagements. So he was probably riddled with PTSD, and it shows up in his work. The thing I like about his work is that he, well, it says The Collected Writings of Ambrose Bierce. So he's just a fantastic writer. Okay, in every engagement while Braille was with us, it was the same way. He would sit his horse like an equestrian statue in a storm of bullets and grape in the most exposed places, wherever, in fact, duty requiring him to go permitted him to remain, when without trouble and with distinct advantage to his reputation for common sense, he might have been in such security as is possible on a battlefield in the brief intervals of personal inaction. On foot, from necessity, or in deference to his dismounted commander or associates, his conduct was the same. He would stand like a rock in the open when officers and men alike had taken to cover, while men older in service and years, higher in rank and of unquestionable intrepidity, were loyally preserving behind the crest of a hill lives infinitely precious to their country. This fellow would stand equally idle on the ridge, facing in the direction of the sharpest fire. When battles are going on in open ground, it frequently occurs that the opposing lines, confronting each other within a stone's throw for hours, hug the earth as possible, as closely as if they loved it. The line of officers in their proper places flatten themselves no less, and the field officers, their horses all killed or sent to the rear, crouch beneath the infernal canopy of hissing lead and screaming iron without a thought of personal dignity. In such circumstances, the life of a staff officer of a brigade is distinctly not a happy one, mainly because of its precarious tenure and the unnerving alternations of emotion to which he is exposed. From a position of that comparative security from which a civilian would ascribe his escape to a miracle, he may be dispatched with an order to some commander of a prone regiment in the front line, a person for the moment inconspicuous and not always easy to find without a deal of search among men somewhat preoccupied, and in a din in which question and answer alike must be imparted in the sign language. It is customary in such cases to duck the head and scuttle away on a keen run, an object of lively interest to some thousands of admiring marksmen. In returning, well, it's not customary to return. Brayle's practice was different. He would consign his horse to the care of an orderly, he loved his horse, and walk quietly away on his perilous errand with never a stoop of the back, his splendid figure accentuated by his uniform, holding the eye with a strange fascination. We watched him with suspended breath, our hearts in our mouths. On one occasion of this kind, indeed, one of our number, an impetuous stammerer, was so possessed by his emotion that he shouted at me, "I'll bet you $2 they drop him before he gets in that ditch." I did not accept the brutal wager. I thought they would. Let me do justice to a brave man's memory. In all these needless exposures of life, there was no visible bravado nor subsequent narration. In the few instances when some of us had ventured to remonstrate, Braille had smiled pleasantly and made some light reply, which, however, had not encouraged a further pursuit of the subject. Once he said, "Captain, if I ever come to grief by forgetting your advice, I hope my last moments will be cheered by the sound of your beloved voice, breathing into my ear the blessed words, 'I told you so.'" We laughed at the captain, just why we could probably not have explained. And that afternoon, when he was shot to rags from an ambuscade, Braille remained by the body for some time, adjusting the limbs with needless care, there in the middle of a road swept by gusts of grape and canister. It is easy to condemn this kind of thing, and not very difficult to refrain from imitation, but it's impossible not to respect, and Braille was liked nonetheless for the weakness which he had so heroic an expression. We wished he were not a fool, but he went on that way to the end. Sometimes hard hit, but always returning to duty about as good as new. Of course, it came at last. He who ignores the law of probabilities challenges an adversary that is seldom beaten. It was at Resaca, in Georgia, during the movement that resulted in the taking of Atlanta. In front of our brigade, the enemy's line of earthworks ran through open fields along a slight crest. At each end of this open ground, we were close up to him in the woods, but the clear ground we could not hope to occupy until night, when darkness would enable us to burrow like moles and throw up earth. At this point, our line was a quarter-mile away in the edge of a wood. Roughly, we formed a semicircle, the enemy's fortified line being the chord of the arc. "Lieutenant, go tell Colonel Ward to work up as close as he can get cover and not waste much ammunition in unnecessary firing. You may leave your horse." When the general gave this direction, we were in the fringe of the forest, near the right extremity of the arc. Colonel Ward was at the left. The suggestion to leave the horse obviously enough meant that Braille was to take the longer line through the woods and among the men. Indeed, the suggestion was needless. To go by the short route means absolutely certain failure to deliver the message. Before anybody could interpose, Braille had cantered lightly into the field, and the enemy's works were crackling conflagration. "Stop that damn fool," shouted the general. A private of the escort, with more ambition than brains, spurred forward to obey, and within 10 yards left himself and his horse dead on the field of honor. Braille was beyond recall, galloping easily along, parallel to the enemy and less than 200 yards distant. He was a picture to see. His hat had been blown or shot from his head, and his long blonde hair rose and fell with the motion of his horse. He sat erect in the saddle, holding the reins lightly in his left hand, his right hanging carelessly at his side. An occasional glimpse of his handsome profile as he turned his head one way or the other proved that the interest which he took in what was going on was natural and without affectation. The picture was intensely dramatic, but in no degree theatrical. Successive scores of rifles spat at him viciously as he came within range, and our own line in the edge of the timber broke out in visible and audible defense. No longer regardful of themselves or their orders, our fellows sprang to their feet and, swarming into the open, sent broad sheets of bullets against the blazing crest of the offending works, which poured an answering fire into their unprotected groups with deadly effect. The artillery on both sides joined the battle, punctuating the rattle and roar with deep, earth-shaking explosions, and tearing the air with storms of screaming grape, from which the enemy's side splintered the trees and spattered them with blood, and from ours defiled the smoke of his arms with banks and clouds of dust from his parapet. My attention had been for a moment drawn to the general combat, but now, glancing down the unobscured avenue between these two thunderclouds, I saw Braille, the cause of the carnage. Invisible now from either side and equally doomed by friend and foe, he stood in the shot-swept space, motionless, his face toward the enemy. At some little distance lay his horse. I instantly saw what had stopped him. They're trying to take me. Well, don't let them. Don't let them do that. As topographical engineer, I had early in the day made a hasty examination of the ground, and now remembered that at that point was a deep and sinuous gully crossing half the field from the enemy's line. Well, you shoot them is one way. That's depending on what it is. That's pretty effective. That, or I would use some sort of medieval weapon. You could go with a club. You could go with a blade like a sword. You could use a mace, which is a flanged club, lighter, but it has basically blades on it. Does a lot of damage. Or a flail, but you got to be careful with those. But basically, don't let them take you. Don't let them take you. Clearly, it was now impassable. Its salient angles would have afforded him absolute security if he had chosen to be satisfied with the miracle already wrought in his favor and leaped into it. He could not go forward. He would not turn back. He stood awaiting death. It did not keep him long waiting. By some mysterious coincidence, almost instantaneously as he fell, the firing ceased. A few desultory shots at long intervals serving rather to accentuate rather than break the silence. It was as if both sides had suddenly repented of their profitless crime. 4 stretcher-bearers of ours, following a sergeant with a white flag, soon afterward moved unmolested into the field and made straight for Braille's body. Several Confederate officers and men came out to meet them, and with uncovered heads assisted them to take up their sacred burden. As it was borne toward us, we heard beyond the hostile works fifes and a muffled drum, a dirge. A generous enemy honored the fallen brave. Amongst the dead man's effects was a soiled Russian leather pocketbook. In the distribution of the mementos of our friend, which the general as administrator decreed, this fell to me. A year after the close of the war, on my way to California, I opened and idly inspected it. Out of an overlooked compartment fell a letter without envelope or address. If it doesn't physically exist, then you wouldn't be able to use physical weapons. What you would need is weapons which are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. That's the kind you need. I've got them. I've got a lot of them, and I've used them to great effect. And now the enemy can't take me. It was in a woman's handwriting and began with words of endearment, but no name. It had the following dateline: San Francisco, California, July 9th, 1862. The signature was "Darling," in marks of quotation. Incidentally, in the body of the text, the writer's full name was given, Marion Mendenhall. The letter showed evidence of cultivation and good breeding, but it was an ordinary love letter, if a love letter can be ordinary. There was not much in it, but there was something. It was this: Mr. Winters, whom I shall always hate for it, has been telling me that at some battle in Virginia, where he got his hurt, you were seen crouching behind a tree. I think he wants to injure you in my regard, which he knows the story would do if I believed it. I would bear to hear of my soldier lover's death, but not of his cowardice. These were the words which on that sunny afternoon in a distant region had slain 100 men. Is woman weak? One evening I called on Miss Mendenhall to return the letter to her. I intended also to tell her what she had done, but not that she did it. I found her in a handsome dwelling on Rincon Hill. She was beautiful, well-bred, in a word, charming. You knew Lieutenant Herman Braille, I said, rather abruptly. You know, doubtless, that he fell in battle. Among his effects was found this letter from you. My errand here is to place it in your hands. She mechanically took the letter, and then, looking at me with a smile, said, It is very good of you, though I am sure it was hardly worthwhile. She started and suddenly changed color. This stain, she said, is it? Surely it's not. Madam, I said, pardon me, but that is the blood of the truest and bravest heart that ever beat. She hastily flung the letter on the blazing coals. Oh, I cannot bear the sight of blood, she said. How did he die? I had involuntarily risen to rescue that scrap of paper, sacred even to me, and now stood partly behind her. As she asked the question, she turned her face about and slightly upward. The light of the burning letter was reflected in her eyes and touched her cheek with a tinge of crimson like the stain upon its page. I had never seen anything so beautiful as this detestable creature. He was bitten by a snake, I replied. The man. So this guy is, he's crazy brave, and nobody can figure out why till one day he gets killed. And then upon returning the letter or the pocketbook, he finds the letter that basically his girlfriend had called him a coward. And so he basically got killed trying to be brave. And anyway, interesting. That's the author is the veteran of 22 engagements. So anyway, I am going to end it right there. We had some great stuff with William Butler Yeats remix. I realize a lot of those things, yes, but you got to die something, right? Once to die, but after this, the judgment. So you got to be ready. And then William Butler Yeats and a little Ambrose Bierce. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great night, and I'll see you soon. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to see you again sometime.